Lena was a shy, quiet girl, living in a small town with her father. She was 14, and her life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. A year ago, her mother left. It wasn't just that her mother left the house, but she left Lena and her father for another man. The man wasn't kind, and Lena could see it. Her mother didn't even say goodbye. At first, Lena didn't understand why her mother had left. She thought maybe it was her fault. Maybe she was too quiet, too difficult. She had always been a little different from the other kids. She liked to read, draw, and spend time alone, but she wasn't rude. She just didn't know how to talk to others. Because of this, she had very few friends. Most of the time, she sat alone at school, eating lunch by herself. Her father tried to comfort her. He told her that sometimes adults make mistakes, but Lena didn't believe him. How could her mother make a mistake? She had chosen another man over her family. How could she be happy without them? Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Lena's sadness grew stronger, and her loneliness became harder to bear. She would come home from school to an empty house. Her father was always at work, so she spent her afternoons in silence. Sometimes she would watch TV, but she could never concentrate. She missed her mother so much. One day, while walking home from school, Lena saw a woman. She didn't recognize her at first, but then she realized. It was her mother. She was walking down the street, holding hands with a man Lena didn't know. Lena's heart sank. She had hoped, maybe, that her mother was just away on a long vacation or that she would come back one day. But now, she saw that her mother had a new life, a new family. Lena stood behind a tree, watching them. She couldn't move. Her heart was beating so fast she felt like it might explode. The woman who had given birth to her, who had cared for her, was no longer the same. Lena wanted to run and shout, to scream at her mother, but she didn't know what to say. She felt like an invisible ghost, watching the life she used to have slip away. The next day, Lena couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen. She decided to follow her mother. She wanted to know where she was living, what her new life was like. It wasn't out of anger. It was because Lena couldn't understand how things had changed so much. After school, Lena quietly followed her mother at a distance. She watched as her mother and the man walked into a building on the other side of town. It was a nice apartment building, something much nicer than where Lena and her father lived. It made Lena feel even smaller, like they didn't belong in that world anymore. Lena went home that evening, but she couldn't stop thinking about the building. Was her mother happy there? Did she miss Lena? Was she ever going to come back to them? A few days later, Lena decided to go back. She couldn't let go of the idea that her mother might be sad, that maybe she still thought of her. So Lena walked to the apartment building again. This time, she waited outside for a long time. She didn't know what she was hoping for, but she just couldn't stay away. When she saw her mother leave the building alone, Lena felt her chance had come. She walked slowly toward her. "Mom?" Lena asked, her voice trembling. Her mother turned around. For a moment, she looked surprised, but then her expression changed. She looked at Lena coldly, almost like she didn't know her. "What are you doing here?" her mother asked, her voice distant. I just wanted to talk to you," Lena said, her voice barely a whisper. Her mother looked down at the ground, not meeting Lena's eyes. "I don't have time for this. You should go home." Lena's heart broke. She felt like a child again, forgotten and unwanted. "I miss you," Lena said, her voice shaking. "I want to come back home. I want us to be a family again." Her mother stepped back. "You don't understand, Lena. Things are different now. I have a new life. You need to accept that." Lena felt the tears welling up inside her. She had so many questions, so many things she wanted to say, but her mother had already turned away. "Please," Lena called out, but her mother didn't respond. She just walked away without looking back. Lena stood there, frozen in place. She felt like a part of her had died in that moment. The mother she had once known was gone, replaced by someone who didn't even recognize her. She realized that she couldn't keep trying to fix something that was broken beyond repair. She walked back home slowly, the weight of the world on her shoulders. It was hard to breathe. The future felt so uncertain. She had no idea how to move on, how to accept that her family was no longer what it used to be. When Lena got home, her father was sitting on the couch looking at the TV. He smiled when he saw her, but Lena couldn't smile back. She couldn't talk about what had just happened. She felt so alone, like she was carrying the weight of the whole world on her own. "How was school today?" her father asked gently. "It was fine," Lena replied, her voice flat. She didn't want to tell him about what had happened. It would only hurt him more. She couldn't tell him that her mother didn't want her anymore, that she had a new life with someone else. So she sat quietly, hoping that one day things might feel better, even though she wasn't sure if they ever would.